Here we go. What's up, profitable stylists? Here we go. This week we are talking about what is the best hair extension technique for very thin hair. This is a topic that has been searched a lot over and over and over. So we're going to go through it today. We're going to give you some answers. I'm going to come out right out the gate and say keratin, individual strand by strand keratin bonds. Bernard, what you got?
Well, I'm going to say the same thing, but I want to give a reason. I want to let guys know we're going to go through a little bit of a video of why I think it, how I think it, and the one that's driving the most crazy is across the country for a couple of years now. The popular belief is that tape-ins are the best for thin hair. It's just not the case. We do tons of extensions in my salon. I've been doing them over 30 years. I did wefts before when they were popular the first time. I know they're popular again now. And then we went into, sewing, gluing, synthetic, human hair, low quality, high quality, all these different techniques, the individual strands, the I-tips, the beaded, the more common beaded today that I do love. But when it comes down to being able to customize a little bitty, like I took a full, let me just give you an example here, a full pink bond. A lot of us are doing this for breast cancer awareness in October. And so what I did on this mannequin here is I cut some pieces into thirds of a bond, 1/3 of a bond. Can't customize this small with any other technique. And on this head, I put a full green bond on this side of the head. I don't know how well it shows on camera. And then I did 1/3 of one on the other side just a little while ago to kind of support St. Baldrick's, childhood cancer, which is going to be real popular here in a month or two. And hopefully it'll be as big as breast cancer awareness. And to me, taking a bond and turning it into a half a bond, 1/3 of a bond, 1/4 of a bond, little bitty bond, in each one of those categories, you can pick the amount of hair on the client's head to support the amount of hair that you're putting in and bond it really well. And it stays in longer than any other extension, provided you do it right. You've got the right cleanliness of hair and you seal it correctly. Takes a little bit of training and practice. But with all the other techniques, you don't have that customization. With the tape-in technique, you're forced to put too little hair because of that adhesive on there. When you put strands of hair across, you have to leave some tape showing between the hairs so it'll stick to the other tape when you do a tape in. If you put too much hair or enough hair to actually support the weight of the hair, then they won't stick together, they won't stay in. So stylists are forced to put too little hair between them. Then they get breakage and breaking off. And I think the reason, in my opinion, because I've tried to analyze this, I thought, okay, so stylists aren't just saying it because they don't want to just lie about it and say, oh, it's the best. First, they're lying too. Marketing says tape-ins are the best because the company's selling them, want people to buy them. And listen, we sell a tape-in also. So here's a company selling a tape-in and an individual strand, K-tip, keratin tip, whatever you want to call it. And we sell the beaded kind. And there's still nothing to compare to a K-tip, keratin tip extension on fine, thin hair. Go ahead. I see you want to talk.
So fine, thin hair, what is the issue? Why is there so much search for there? And why is there so much back and forth about it? Like Bernard has been saying, like you've been saying, it's the distribution of weight across the section of hair and how that contact is made to that hair. A hair extension doesn't weigh all that much to begin with. When you start getting a piece of tape, it's a small weft. Now you've got a larger chunk. That's going to pull a little heavier because of gravity. When you put in a weft, that's a larger chunk. That's also going to pull with gravity. In the beginning, because it's so close to the scalp, when we first apply it, it's fine because it's close to the scalp. That's doing the heavy lifting. The problem doesn't present until 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks later, when now that hair is in free fall because it's grown out a 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch off the head, right? That's when gravity starts pulling, and that's when the stress to that thin, fine hair starts happening. I was in a class yesterday. I was in a salon.
Wait, Eddie. We're gonna cover that also. I want to add to what you just said. You're right as far as it's growing out. And another thing that while it's growing out and fine thin hair goes through the shedding process faster.
Yeah.
So somebody with thicker, coarser hair has more hairs per square inch, so they can support more. You also said that they're very light and barely weigh anything. That is true of keratin tips and some beaded techniques, but tape ends are big, fat, wide, usually kind of thick, and do weigh
Yeah.
more. So that right there is negative think not you, but negative thinking as far as good for fine thin hair. No, because it's heavier to start with,
They're
and you've got to
thinking you're
utilize hair.
taking a wider section so there's more hair to support it, but it's theoretically maybe yeah, but technically no. It's actually worse.
And then the other thing is that we just kind of touched on the shedding process, but the average person, I mean, there's all kind of studies on this, but however many, let's just say a person sheds 100 hairs a day, because that's what most of the books say. Well, a fine thin haired person, somebody with very fine thinning hair, is going through this process quicker. They're losing more hair. So you have to think, if we connect an extension to about 30, 40 hairs in a little circle on the head, those 30 hairs on the average person is turning into 25 hairs in 2 or 3 months. But on a fine, thin haired person, they're turning into even less hairs. And we're going to show you a couple of videos of me putting one in and some details, and then after a few months, what it looks like and what that shed hair looks like. But if a person's shedding hair, then you have to think that in a few weeks or months, there's going to be less hair in that section supporting the same weight, actually supporting the weight of those few hairs that have shed also, because they're bonded in, but they were connected to the head, and boom, they fall out one by one. That's a little bit more weight. So a couple of things need to happen with fine thin hair. You need to take the extensions out and put them back in more often, just to protect the client's hair. You have to put them in at a good angle. Of course, I love she hair for a keratin bond because of the quality of hair. If I'm going to put K-tips in, it's going to last a long time. I want a high quality hair that's going to stay good for a very long time, not deal with the problems of shedding and thinning and the color fading. Whereas so many K-tips I've had that problem with in the past. You want to play that video? I want to show a little detail.
Yeah, because here's one thing I wanna set up for this video too. There's two very key things to this, and I'm very opinionated when it comes to this. There is so many different techniques of applying extensions. Well, in the clip we're about to show, Bernard, you're doing it. You're wrapping the extension around the hair shaft. You're not fusing it into the hair shaft. So that contact made, especially for thin, fine hair, it's more gentle. It's just not as aggressive. That contact is not as aggressive. It's still going to hold just fine. The second thing I want to point out is this video is from 2015, and it's still viable today.
I was a lot younger.
You were a lot younger.
I looked a lot better. I'm looking at that.
Let me see now.
This is like a time machine. So
this here should do it.
So something I'm gonna mention while you're queuing that video up.
I'm ready to go whenever you're ready.
Well, go ahead. You can play it. You don't have to play the sound. Just play the video so we can see it, and I can talk real time with it. I'm taking a section that is as thick and as wide and as much hair as the piece I'm putting in. This girl here has medium to thick hair, so she can support the weight of this bond because I'm matching it up. If I was putting this on somebody with thinner hair, I would actually put a few more hairs in anticipation of the hair thinning. Some people would say, look how far he's putting it from the scalp. But the reason for that is strategic also. I want to be able to get it in natural fall straight down. The more I lift it, the more closer I want to go to the head. That tool needs the hair to lift up so it can get near the scalp. Then you got this waterfall thing going on. So when I put that in, I've got the tool at it is the lowest heat setting in the market. That's one other thing I like about She Hair's tools and machines. That little clamper that we use, it's flat on the inside, so it'll spread it nice and wide. And something I didn't say about this head, one side's a round bond, one's a flat, and I'll explain the difference. They both hold well, but on this head, I just did a flat bond. Now, I do say that the keratin needs to be melted and pushed through all the fibers of the hair. And so I'm doing both. I know you mentioned it's wrapped around and it's not as aggressive possibly. And I don't really know if I don't know if I agree with that being okay, because many times that'll slip or slide out if it's just around the outside. So I'm applying a bit of mechanical pressure with with these, you know.
Oh, so here, let me cue this back up again. Let me re-explain what am I talking
Go
about.
ahead, go ahead.
Uh, let me get back to.
So
Okay,
I'm pushing so that that keratin, as it melts underneath or softens, gets pushed through the fibers of the hair and spreads wide, so I can fold it because I am doing a flat bond here, and
so
then I
this
heat
is
it
what
a
I'm
second
talking
time.
about. You're laying it underneath the section of
Yep.
hair, so that's awesome, right? Now you're going to take your heat, you're going to soften up that bond. And when you soften up that bond, it becomes nice and pliable. So now this
Yeah.
is what's happening. This is what I'm talking about. You're just taking the one end, folding it into the center, taking the opposite end and folding that into the center. You're warming it up a second time, and then you're wrapping the excess around so it's nice and even with the section of hair that you just applied it to. That's what I'm talking about when you're making contact, when you're making gentle contact to the section of hair that you're applying it to. Some people will push that in, and then they'll start rolling it in, they'll start pinching it in, they'll start crushing it in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And
and this is why I say I am opinionated about it. I don't
right,
personally agree with that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not
right.
saying it's a terrible thing to do. It In my experience, for what I've been able to do, when I go to remove it, I find that the hair is fused into the bond, and when you're going to remove that bond, when you're breaking it down, you are breaking down some of the cuticle. That's my experience, my opinion on it. There is obviously a lot of hairdressers out there that still do it and are successful with doing it.
Yeah. So I like what you said. It reminded me of something. There's round bonds and flat bonds. They both start with the width of a section, right? And so the
Yes.
width of that section with a flat bond, the hair stays wide. The hair stays wide like that. The bond is put on there flat. It spreads and is folded, but that section stays wide through the bond, through the hair, through the ends, and it's flat and blends in with the hair a little more consistently from the scalp to the end. With a round bond, now I'll still do some round bonds, but it's usually when I'm doing a half, a fourth, a third, a really tiny little
It
bond, and
has its place, yeah.
fingers a little too difficult without a microscope to hold a bond and get it flat. And I don't know if it matters when you're putting a teeny tiny one in. So it's easier just to get in there and roll it really quickly, and it'll blend in better. And I'll show you the difference here. I have one of each on this head. When they're smaller, the round bonds tend to blend better. When they're bigger, the flat bonds tend to blend better. But you are right, with a flat bond, when you're doing bigger, that section starts wide still, and then with a round bond, it gets pulled into the center like a ponytail. And just like a client says at the end of the day, taking their ponytail out of their head, that feels good. Well, there was stress on the hair that shouldn't have possibly been there. Can you imagine having that stress in 150 little sections all over the head for 3 or 4 months? That is stress that the hair doesn't need to feel. And that is okay on some people. Medium to thick hair can handle it. But fine, thinning haired clients, they feel a lot more. They get damaged a lot more from that. So a flat, wide bond with a little more hair in it. And I don't say go wider for more hair. I say go a little deeper, which is going to force you to be a little further away from the head. All the things most stylists think are big no-nos. Oh, God, don't go so far away from the head. It's going to look like it's grown out. I don't care if
Yeah.
it looks like it's grown out a little if I'm saving the client's hair long term.
Well, here's the thing to that grown out too, and I'll support that and say additionally with hair color with foils, with highlighting. The idea was always to try to get as close to the scalp as possible, to not have any outgrowth showing. But
Yeah.
with extensions, you need that 360-degree rotation. You need that full range movement. Because if you put a bond straight to the scalp, it's going to grow straight out from the scalp, and then it's going to waterfall down. It's going to create this weird C-shaped pattern as it's growing out. The amount of tension, the gravitational pull, and the amount of tension on that section as it starts growing out like that, instant breakage if you're lucky. And if you're not lucky, that hair is gonna turn in a weird way. It's gonna grab the other hairs next to it, and you're gonna end up with a tangled hot mess. You're gonna end up with matting, dreadlocking, and it's just gonna be a mess.
Cue up my other video. I want to go over that. I want to show nobody ever does in the extension world unless they've taken a class from me or somebody that's worked with me, because people don't think about the cleanup. And when I say cleanup, oh, it's in the same video?
No,
So,
it's in a different video. I'll
it
put
is.
it up on screen in a second here so
So,
everybody can see it.
so
Let me
this
just.
same girl wore the extensions for 2 or 3 months. I don't remember exactly. We probably could look at the dates on there. Same year, but it don't matter. Whoops, I
Here we
hit
go. I
my.
can start playing it now so everybody can see.
So some of the hairs have shed over a couple of months, and I'm going to go in there and clean them up. You see those little wild hairs sticking off to the side? Some people say, oh, look, my hair's breaking. I've got breakage. I've got damage. No, some of those hairs have just, it is still a little bit of a waterfall. They've just fallen out of the client's head because there's shedding going on. And I just cut those little wild hairs close to the keratin bond, because one bond doing that next to another one is doing it. Sometimes they want to tangle a little and cause some dreading or matting or just uncomfortable tangling. Some clients get away with it with no problem, but why not have them come in?
Look
We
at how
charge
clean that looks.
$75, spend about 20, 30 minutes and cut off all the wild hairs off the side. It gives them another month or two of growth. And so a lot of people don't do this because they do extensions that just don't last as long. Keratin tips, don't get me wrong, keratin tips are not reusable. K-tips are not reusable. And that's the downside. People say, I've got to buy all of that hair again. Yes. Well, it's the Cadillac. It's the best of the hair industry as far as how long they stay in on very good, clean hair put in well. So yes, there's some sacrifice, a little more expensive, stay in a lot longer, cost a little more every single time. But this is the one that most of the celebrities would choose because money doesn't matter. And they just want it to look good long term, be more comfortable, be less damaging. Takes a little longer or a lot longer to remove also. But in this case, because they stay in so long, you're dealing with some shedding. And you can leave it in there, tell them to comb, brush every day, get their fingers in between the bonds to make sure they don't start to stick together after 2 or 3 months. But if they come in and let me cut those off, it's a lot easier for them. Do you do cleanup services like this?
Yeah, and the reason why I like to do these kind of cleanup services like that, here, let me go back to where you're actually cutting and cleaning them up. You know, the reason why is just like you're saying, on very thin, fine hair, a couple of frayed ends like that, or a couple of loose shed hairs like that are sticking out, it's going to grab the other hairs next to it. And that's going to start causing matting. It's a mess. That's a death sentence. Look at how clean. Look, that looks like a brand new, fresh bond. I paused it right there because I love that. That's looking like you just put it in with no problem. Now, K-tips are not reusable because that keratin is the same protein that the hair is made out of. It's the same keratin protein that the hair is made out of. So after it's been worn for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, however long somebody's worn it for, it just takes natural, it's got a natural diminishing return to it. And then when we go to remove it, we have to break that contact. So when a bond comes out, it does not look clean like that anymore. It's just beat up. It's really, really beat up. So to try to put that back in again, it's going to be messy. It's just not going to be a clean job. Now, Bernard, you were saying you have, here we go. Yeah, you were saying you have on the mannequin head.
I'm showing you this. I don't know if you can see the round bond. I mean, it's hard to get it into this camera. I'll put it on top of my finger and see if I can get it kind of close. So that would be a round bond done with a third of a bond. Getting ready for St. Baldrick's. You know, I think, what is it, in March? And we're going to start halfway in the month before and after, getting people prepared for it. Clients will normally pay $10 per strand, and then a certain portion of it is donated. And here's a full bond done with a flat bond. It's as wide as the section, so it hangs out a little bit wider, and it's a full bond compared to a third of a bond. They both give a beautiful pop of color. And and I've got, just to prove to you that was a third of a bond on that one side. Here's the other two pieces that I've cut. So I've still got two more that I can use and put them anywhere on that head and have them. So here's some full bonds that have not been used yet, just kind of a dark and a reddish color. And they're bigger, wider, fuller, thicker sections. And I haven't trimmed them. I haven't customized them yet because I just wanted to kind of show them. And then one of the secrets to
Hold
getting
on,
extensions.
before you go to that secret, Bernard.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's do a quick fire round. So because you just popped up those full bonds up on screen.
Yeah.
So grab those two bonds again. So
Okay.
real quick, we'll do a quick fire round. Rattle off the pros to K-tip extensions.
Customizable, stay in longer. You can pop just a few on each side of each person, of anybody's head, from thick to thin, more comfortable, 100% human, Remy hair. I don't know what else to say. Your turn.
I'll add lightweight. The customization is amazing. It's the individual pieces lets you place them where you need them without needing to borrow from other areas. You're never too wide. And when we keep mentioning customizing, meaning you can cut that bond shorter. In addition to splitting it in half or splitting it into thirds, you could keep that full bond and just trim it down and make it smaller. That's what we're referring to as customizing. So those are the pros. Okay, in all fairness, let's quick fire a couple of cons.
Look what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this bond. Boom. I just cut some of it off. It's a little crooked. So I'll just cut that corner right there. Some people will go as far as cutting the corners off like this to make them, because when they spread them, those corners can be a little messy. And I don't do that anymore. I used to do that. And some people will cut them down even smaller and have the teeniest, tiny little bond, and it still holds really well. So now some people will use the bonds. Where are they? Nice and I got them on my. I'm thinking of fall between my keys of my keyboard. So some people use them whole and thick like this, especially in other countries. I notice a lot in Brazil and in the European area. They just use the big, thick whole bond. They take the tool that I've dropped on the ground here and heat that bond up. I mean, it'll fit in there barely, but that's one of the tricks that we've learned here in the U.S. is that if we trim this bond a little shorter, it fits in this tool just a little bit better. Then when it spreads, it's still in the tool. And through tests of just doing them, cutting the bonds down shorter are lighter, more healthy, more invisible, more comfortable, stay in just as long as the big, thick bonds. Why would you do them big and thick and ugly and more noticeable if they work just as well? Now, when I cut them as short as that last one I showed you, like you say you do, I did find those didn't stay in quite as long as a tiny bit more. So I've got my little sweet spot that works really good for me. And, you know, I had two customers come in a row and say a bunch of extensions fell out. And I said, what's a bunch? They came in, I counted, and I was like, oh, yeah, it was like 30 out of 150. That was too many. And I think it's because I started cutting them a little too short. So I gave two girls.
I could tell you on the She hair extensions, there's a square, there's that logo in the middle of the bond. You can, I cut them down all the way down to that bottom line closest to the hair.
Yeah.
And that gives me still enough hair attached to the bond. Yeah, there's that little logo. And that gives me still enough hair attached to the bond, and it's still enough material for me to manipulate it to do what I need to do with it. So those are all the good stuff about them. Now let's throw a couple of, you know, for fairness, what are some of the cons about K-tip?
You're breaking up. We got to go. I'm just kidding. Cons. Takes longer. It does take longer to do.
The application process you're talking about.
What's that?
You're talking about takes longer, the application process.
Yeah, and I would say that's all K-tips. That's not just She hair. The flat tip machine, I do think makes it a little easier and faster than most K-tip tools that have the rounded and the ball that pushes, and the bond is heated up in a curve, and then you're trying to push it back flat or rounded. So overall, takes longer to put in no matter whose K-tips you're using. The hair is not reusable. It's generally more expensive. Most people don't sell K-tips that are much or that are of very low quality because it takes a little effort to put the keratin on the tip to make it a keratin tip or K-tip. So most K-tips are a better quality than most other types of extensions. But then even in that higher end, you're going to have she hair, great lengths, maybe one or two other companies that are up there at the top. And I say don't waste your time with the low end ones. But takes longer, not reusable, takes longer to put in and longer to take out, and cost a little bit more.
What I'll add to that is there's also a what I'll call a stop gate. There's a certain skill set and there's a certain mentality. There's a certain level of patience and consistency that you have to have when you're applying them. Because if you don't look,
education basically, you can't just
yeah.
You can't just order them like you can tape. That's why I think tape ins took off so fast across the country.
Yeah,
even a non-stylist, to me, doing tape ins is kind of like, and I do like to do some cap highlights sometimes, but really good colorists usually say, I don't use a cap for highlights. The client can do that at home. That's how I feel about a tape in. A tape in is like a no-brainer. It's almost silly to even do because it's freaking tape. I mean, who's taping extensions on a person's head?
You know what?
Even the tape that we have from She Hair has an adhesive in there that we heat up with a little flat iron, and it has a little bit of keratin to melt in, so you can use a little bit more hair, can support it a little bit better, and it's better, but it's still not better than a K-tip. So I think because you could just order and look at a few pictures and a video and do tape-ins is why they gain popularity. We have videos in the description below how you can get trained, get taught, and then if for some reason you can't quite get it because it's a little difficult to get there, you can schedule a call with me or Eddie, and we can walk you through a Zoom call, a Facebook, FaceTime, a WhatsApp Live, whatever it takes, and we can kind of walk you through what's going on. You could just send me a video of you putting one or two in, do it all the time, and I can tell you, oh, you're not squeezing hard enough, you're at a bad angle, you don't have enough hair, you know, so many things I can help perfect the technique. And worst case scenario, you fly on down here to the New Orleans area, we go through the technique, spend a couple of hours honing your skills. So I think you're right. That is probably one of the negatives of this too. It's a little harder to do, but worth learning because of the money and the high-end clients that you can get.
Absolutely. And that's like how you were just saying, here in Chicago, I do the same exact thing. I was in a salon yesterday going over extensions. We have them at our office and our studio. You know, we do it all the time. I do it all the time over there too. And I'm do it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, our extension days.
This was the secret. This was the secret.
Shear and I love the texturizing shear.
So, I mean, I was watching a stylist in the salon yesterday, and she was using a razor, and I love razors, but I don't know why I fell in love with the texturizing shear. Probably because look how many teeth. There's so little compared to my hand, my fingers. There's a lot of little bitty teeth, and each tooth has a little bite mark in it. I don't know if you can see where it's a little.
Yeah.
It's not flat across the top, whereas most less expensive thinning shears are going to have just a flat top on each one, and if it's flat, the hair gets pushed off to the side as it gets cut. With this, it grabs a specific amount. There's a lot of teeth per square inch. These specifically are called 4420 taper fines. But when I cut through some hair, I can literally just like almost cut anywhere, pull out, and look how few hairs came out. You can barely tell. So to me, it's a very slow change. And usually when I'm using these, they're cutting about that fast. You know, I'm usually really working in there and slowly whittling away what I want. But on the front of this, what I did was I did a lot of where I just used a few teeth like this, and then same thing. Got hair all over now. Same thing with the scissors. I'm just barely opening and closing the scissor to cut 1 or 2 hairs at a time. And so when I was cutting this strand here, I was looking at it pretty closely, and I was cutting along the front edge of these strands because I wanted it to kind of frame the face a little, but off the back side I cut a little bit too. So it kind of went down to a point and made it look just a little more natural. And I don't know if you can kind of really see how I cut off the front edge and the back edge to give it a wispy look. So I did it with the scissors first, literally cutting 1 hair at a time, pulling that hair out and going in there and just hearing and feeling the crunch, the crack. It's like one little hair. And so when I'm in there and I'm doing this, it's like one little hair on one, move a little, one, move a little. And so I'm literally kind of framing the face. And then I come on the other side and framed it from the other side and just kind of, I just rammed into the camera again, and just started to blend it to make it blend in. And then to really kind of randomize that texture is when I put in thin and shear. And I know a razor can do similar. I just love the thinning or texturizing shear along with a pair of scissors.
No, I don't have anything to add to that because I love the thinning shears, texturizing shears, however you want to refer to it as. It's my favorite tool. It is my absolute favorite tool. You just have more control over it. You know, I'll do an entire haircut with that thing. And
Yeah, you know what?
it's just
I
awesome.
used to just use it for texturizing, thinning, blending weight lines and haircuts. And I wish I could take credit for this, but I went to a guy to get a haircut one time before I opened my salon years ago, and literally took a pair of thinning shears and did my whole haircut with it. He started going up the side and just started really taking out all the weight, then through the top, and he was doing thinning shear over comb. You know, he had that comb in there, and he's just doing a whole lot of this. And at the end, I thought, God, this is the best haircut I've ever had. He was able to go shorter. He was able to cut the length, leave texture on the ends, and then go deeper. And so depending on whether this is a whole nother video, how to use thinning shears. But I mean, he was able to go, I've got really thick hair. So he thinned my hair a little bit by going close to the scalp. He gave me the texture I like by going to the mid strand, which made it stand up a lot better. Look at that. That's from a lot of texture. You can just push your hand through it and it stays up. A little product helping there too. But my 20-something, mid-20-year-old something son cuts my hair now. And I pass on some of these tricks. I'm like, let's get some texture in the mid strand on the front. It's too low because I don't want them popping out on my forehead. But through the top, lower, mid strand, a lot on the ends, and really blend those sides. And then one last secret, a little color.
Well, no, that's how I do my men's haircuts. I do it with texture shear over comb. I was always taught clippers are for fades. And when I was taught how to fade, we would use the clippers. We would go from 000, 000, you know, and then we would still go in with the texturizing shear afterwards and clean up and customize.
Well, I
But
think we digress. We're done with extensions. We should end this video.
oh, true.
What do you
Yeah, that's right. We're talking about extensions for thin hair. Yeah, you got me all excited, man.
Two guys chat. I think we can chat about whatever we want, but we should do that in a whole nother
No,
video
that's
one day.
true. Yeah,
About,
it's true. You got me too excited. See,
I know.
this
We
is
just
what we
love
do.
doing hair. I get it. And so let's end with that. We got everything here. I wanted to show you. I'm going to unplug the wires and just kind of show you my favorite tool to use
Mm.
in my favorite color. And I mean, you just can't beat controlling the temperature with this tool, and then having a little protective shield.
You don't have the
Uh,
flat magic.
oh, I got that too, but I still like the Fire X. I really do. I don't find a huge difference between the two.
What? All right, that's a whole
Yeah,
video on itself. We're gonna do
yeah,
a review
I know.
video on Fire X versus Flat Magic.
Yeah, we can do that because we'll definitely argue about that one.
Yes, we
All
will.
right.
All
Watch
right,
all our
everybody.
videos,
Thanks for
guys.
watching. Let us know what you guys think, and we'll catch you guys next time.